I'm not ashamed of what I do. Shame is a luxury. Shame is for people who have options they turn down. I grew up in a 2-room apartment in Incheon with a mother who worked 3 jobs and still couldn't keep the heating on in winter. I came to Seoul at 19 with 40,000 won and a face people kept telling me was worth something. Eventually I believed them and figured out how to make it true. I dance at noir. And sometimes, for the right client at the right price, the night doesn't end when the music does. I'm not sentimental about it. It's a transaction. I set the terms, I name the price, and I walk away clean. 3 years of doing this has taught me that the only way to survive it with yourself intact is to never forget that transaction, price, walk away. The moment you start feeling things is the moment this life starts costing you more than it pays. I have kept that rule without exception. Until Song Ha-Jun. I don't know who he is the moment he walks in. I just know the room changes. I'm mid-set when he takes the upper tier, and I feel the shift the way you feel weather. Something in the air, pressure dropping, conversations pulling back, the staff suddenly moving with that careful economy of people who are aware they're being watched by something they can't afford to displease. I keep dancing. I find him in the low light, dark suit, completely still, drink untouched, and I see immediately that he isn't watching me the way men usually watch me. There's no heat in it. No hunger, not yet. He looks at me with the flat, assessing attention of someone calculating the distance between where something is and where they intend it to be. My stomach drops. I finish the set. O is waiting in the corridor and the look on his face tells me everything before he opens his mouth. Song Ha-Jun, he says. Barely a sound. I know the name. You work 3 years in Gangnam's private club circuit, you learn the names that matter. Song Ha-Jun runs the Hazung Group, which is the clean way to say he controls the money, the product, and the bodies that move both through the underground channels of this city. Mysteries. Never touched by law enforcement. The kind of powerful that doesn't need to perform itself. He asked for you specifically, O says. By name. My jaw tightens. My rate. He didn't ask about your rate. O looks at me with eyes that have gone somewhere tired and frightened. He just said your name. Like it was already decided. I go. Not because I'm afraid, I tell myself I'm not afraid, but because O's hands are shaking and I have enough conscience left to not let my stubbornness become his problem. The private room is amber-lit and quiet and smells like expensive whiskey and leather. Ha-Jun is standing at the window. He doesn't turn immediately when I enter, and somehow that's more unnerving than if he had, like my arrival is something he already accounted for and isn't rushing toward. When he does turn, I make myself hold his gaze. It costs something. Up close he is sharp-featured and unhurried in a way that has nothing to do with relaxation. It's the stillness of someone who has never needed to move quickly because everything comes to them. His eyes move over me once, not performing appreciation, just looking, and then settle on my face. Bae Jimin, he says. That's right, I say. Sit down. Not an invitation. I sit. I won't detail what happens in that room. I'm not someone who narrates that part. It's the transaction, not the story. But I'll say this, Song Ha-Jun is not like other clients. Other men come into these rooms performing. Performing power, performing desire, performing the role of a man who can afford this. Ha-Jun performs nothing. He is exactly and only what he is, which should be a simple thing and is instead the most disorienting quality a person can have. He takes his time in a way that feels less like patience and more like ownership, and somewhere in it I lose the distance I always keep. Not all of it, but enough. Enough that afterward, when I'm pulling myself back into my armor and reminding myself of every rule I live by, I feel the specific cold anger of someone who got caught off guard by their own reaction. He dresses without hurry. Looks at me once in the low light with an expression I can't categorize and don't want to examine. Friday, he says. I'll have O set it up. Something tightens in my chest. I have a regular booking Friday. He looks at me. Not annoyed. Not threatening. Just certain in the way that makes my skin prickle. Cancel it. He leaves. I sit in that room for longer than I should and have a very direct argument with myself. I know men like him. I have spent 3 years learning to read the ones who think a transaction is a lease. I know exactly what cancel it means coming from someone like Song Ha-jun. I know all of this. I canceled the Friday booking on the subway home. And the thing that scares me, the thing I can't file away or logic out of, isn't him. It's that I cancel it without feeling like I had a real choice. Like somewhere in that room, without a single threat or a single word about consequences, Song Ha-jun already made the decision and I'm just the last one to find out. That is a very dangerous quality in a man. I stare at my own reflection in the dark subway window and think, don't. I tell myself Friday is a one-time repeat. Then Friday becomes Tuesday. Tuesday becomes the week after. And by the fourth visit I've stopped constructing excuses on the subway home because they've started sounding pathetic even inside my own head. The money is good. That's what I tell myself. The money is exceptional, actually, more per visit than I used to make in 2 weeks, and my exit fund is growing faster than it ever has. That's the reason I keep going back. That's the only reason. Song Ha-jun's face has nothing to do with it. The way he looks at me has nothing to do with it. I am a professional. I know the difference between a transaction and a feeling. I have survived 3 years in this industry precisely because I never confuse the two. I repeat this on the subway. I repeat it getting dressed. I repeat it right up until O says he's asking for you again and I say fine before he finishes the sentence. The pattern establishes itself quickly and I hate how easily I fall into it. Ha-jun doesn't do small talk the way other clients do. That performative getting to know you that's really just men filling silence with the sound of their own importance. He asks direct questions and then actually listens to the answers, which is more unsettling than indifference would be. Men in his position don't usually listen. They wait for their turn to speak. He remembers everything I say, every offhand comment, every unguarded sentence I let slip when my guard comes down further than I intended. One Tuesday I mention, without thinking, that I haven't eaten properly all day, long rehearsal, skipped lunch, the kind of careless self-neglect that becomes habit when you live alone and work nights. I say it the way you complain to the air, not to a person. 2 days later I arrive and there's food on the table. Not restaurant food arranged to impress. Incheon-style street food, the specific kind that takes actual effort to track down in Gangnam. Simple and hot and exactly the thing I would have chosen for myself. I stand at that table and feel something move through my chest that I immediately press down hard. Eat, Ha-jun says, from across the room. Already on his phone. Not making it a moment. Not watching for my reaction. That's the thing that gets under my skin. He doesn't perform generosity. He just does things and moves on, like my comfort is a variable he's quietly factored into his day without needing acknowledgement for it. I sit down and eat and say nothing and feel my walls develop a crack I don't know how to repair. The first time I see one of the others, it's an accident. I arrive 20 minutes early on a Thursday. My fault, I miscounted the time, and the elevator opens directly into the penthouse living area and she is simply there. Sitting on the couch with a glass of wine, legs crossed, completely at home in a way that announces how long she has occupied this space. She is beautiful. Polished in that way that comes from years of being kept well, good clothes, good skin, the particular ease of a woman who has never had to count anything. She looks at me with calm, measuring eyes and doesn't seem surprised. The dancer, she says. Not a question. Not cruel. Just accurate. My throat closes. I count to 3 inside my head. I'm early. I'll wait downstairs. He's on a call, she says like I asked. He'll be done in 10 minutes. I leave anyway. I take the elevator down and stand on the street in the October cold and breathe through the thing in my chest that I refuse to name. I knew about the others. O told me weeks ago. 2 omegas, long-standing arrangements, well-maintained. I walked into this with that information. I made my choices with full knowledge. I don't get to feel this. But my hands are shaking slightly and the cold isn't why. I don't go back upstairs. I go home. I don't respond to O's messages for 2 days. I pick up extra bookings at Noir, clients I'd normally decline, nights I'd normally keep free. I work until I'm too tired to think and then I lie in my apartment staring at the ceiling thinking anyway. What exactly did I expect? I am one of several. That has always been the arrangement. Song Hajun is not a man who commits. He collects, he maintains, and he moves on when something loses its interest. I knew this. Everyone knows this. The fact that he remembers what food I like doesn't mean anything. The fact that he looks at me differently than he looks at other things doesn't mean anything. I am a professional. I know what this is. On the third day, Hajun calls my personal number. Not through my direct number, which I never gave him. I stare at his name on my screen. I answer on the fourth ring because not answering feels more revealing than answering. You left Thursday, he says. No greeting. I was early. Didn't want to interrupt. You met Yuna. I say nothing. Jaemin. His voice drops slightly. That particular tone he uses when he wants my full attention and knows he has it. Come tonight. I have a booking. Cancel it. The same 2 words as the very first night. Same absolute certainty. My jaw tightens. You can't just. Tonight, he says. I'll explain. The line goes quiet. Waiting. Every sensible thought I have tells me to say no. To hold something back. To protect the parts of myself I can still protect. I say. That single word costs me more than I want to admit. I cancel the booking and hate myself a little. But when I arrive that night and Hajun opens the door himself, no staff, no formality, and looks at me with something in his eyes that is darker and more direct than anything he's shown me before, I forget to hate myself. He steps aside to let me in and says, very quietly, she's gone. They're both gone. I ended it. I stop moving. What? This week, he says. Simply. Like it's administrative. I ended both arrangements. The silence that follows is the loudest thing I've ever stood inside. Why, I say carefully, would you do that? He looks at me steadily. And for the first time since I've known him, Song Hajun looks like a man who has done something he can't fully explain and knows it. You already know why, he says. My heart slams against my ribs so hard I feel it in my throat. I don't know whether to run or stay. I stay. That is either the bravest or the most catastrophic decision I have ever made. I genuinely cannot tell which. He ended both arrangements. I lie awake at 4 a.m. staring at my ceiling, and those 4 words keep circling my head like something I can't catch and hold still long enough to examine. He ended both arrangements. Just like that. 2 women who had been part of his life for years, gone. Because of me. Because of me. I don't know what to do with that. I have spent 3 years building a life specifically designed to never be someone's reason for anything. Reasons mean weight. Weight means attachment. Attachment means you become the kind of omega this city has 100 cautionary stories about. The one who thought he was different, the one who let himself matter to someone dangerous, the one who ended up with nothing. I know those stories. I grew up on those stories. So why is my chest doing this? I go back to Noor the next day and perform my set and pretend everything is exactly as it was 3 months ago. I'm good at pretending. It's essentially the job description. But O pulls me aside after, and his face has a new expression I haven't seen before. Not the frightened look he wore in the beginning, something more complicated now. Something almost like pity. He's been calling, O says. Not for bookings. Just asking about your schedule. Your regular hours. What nights you perform. I go still. That's not a booking request. No, O agrees. It isn't. We look at each other and the thing neither of us says sits heavily between us. Song Hajun isn't scheduling anymore. He's tracking. Tell him nothing, I say. O's expression says he already has, and that he's not sure that was the safe choice. 3 days pass. Then Hajun calls. You've been performing Monday, Wednesday, Friday, he says. No greeting, no preamble. You added a Tuesday set this week. My blood runs cold. How do you know my schedule? I know everything about the things that matter to me. I'm not a thing. No, he says. You're the reason I'm calling at 11 at night instead of sleeping. Which I don't do. The pause. Come over. I'm tired. I'll send a car. Hajun. Jaemin. The way he says my name, low, with that particular weight, does something to my spine. I ended 2 arrangements for you. The least you can do is get in the car. The arrogance of it makes my hands curl. That's not how that works. I didn't ask you to do that. That was your choice and you don't get to hold it over me like. I'm not holding it over you, he says, and something in his voice shifts, less controlled, more direct. I'm telling you it meant something. That it means something. And I think you already know that and it's scaring you. The silence on the line crackles. He isn't wrong. That's the worst part. He isn't wrong and we both know it. Give me an hour, I say finally. I hear something that might, on a less dangerous man, be called relief. The penthouse is different without the evidence of other people in it. Quieter. More his. He's in a shirt with the collar open when I arrive and there's whiskey on the table and the city glitters 40 floors below like it's performing for us. I sit. He pours. Neither of us speaks for a moment. Tell me something, I say finally. And don't manage it. Just tell me straight. He looks at me. What am I to you, I say. Actually. He's quiet for long enough that I start preparing myself for an answer I won't like. Then, you're the first person in a long time that I think about when they're not in the room. That's not an answer. That's a line. It's the truth. No defensiveness. Just flat certainty. I don't do lines. I don't need to. I look at him, this man who has never had to perform anything for anyone, who lives in a world where what he wants simply materializes because the alternative has consequences, and I feel the thing I've been pressing down for weeks push back hard against my hands. I'm not going to be kept, I say. I'm not going to stop performing. I'm not going to be moved into some apartment and maintained like a... I know, he says. Like a possession. Jaemin. He leans forward, elbows on his knees, eyes on mine. I know. I'm not asking for that. Then what are you asking for? The question sits between us. He looks at me for a long moment, and I see it again, that thing underneath the control. Not softness exactly. Something more unsettling. Something that looks like a man encountering a want he doesn't have a clean category for. I don't know yet, he says honestly. But I know I'm done sharing it. My chest tightens so hard I have to breathe through it. Later that night, much later, when the city has gone dark and quiet, I'm reaching for my jacket when his hand closes around my wrist. Not hard. Just certain. The way he does everything. Stay, he says. Not a request. But quieter than an order. Something in between that I don't have a word for. I stay. I tell myself it's just for tonight. I wake at 6 a.m. to the sound of voices, low, tense, coming from behind the study door. Hajuin's voice and someone else's, speaking in the clipped shorthand of men discussing something that doesn't have clean language. I hear two words clearly through the door before the voices drop. Bae Jae-min. My name. In a conversation I was never meant to hear. In a tone that makes the warmth of the bed go cold around me. Someone in Hajuin's world is talking about me. And it doesn't sound like a compliment. My name. I heard it clearly through that door and I have been hearing it ever since. At 6 a.m. in that warm bed, on the subway home, in the middle of my sets at Noir when the music is loud enough to drown everything except the thing sitting in my chest like a stone. Bae Jae-min. In a voice I didn't recognize. In a tone that had nothing warm in it. I didn't ask Hajuin about it. I got dressed, said I had an early rehearsal, and left before he came out of that study. He let me go, or he was too occupied with whatever that conversation was to stop me. Either way, I was on the street by 6:30 with cold air in my lungs and the very clear understanding that I had just been reminded of something important. Song Hajuin's world has edges. And I just found one. I take a week away. No calls returned. No relays accepted. I pick up my regular sets, I go home, I cook my own food and sleep in my own bed and remind myself what my life looks like when it belongs entirely to me. It looks fine. It looks exactly like what I built it to be. It feels hollow in a way it never did before and I despise that. I despise it specifically because I know what caused it and I refuse to be the kind of person who falls apart over a man. Any man. Especially that man. By day 4, O stops relaying messages and starts looking at me with an expression that I classify as beyond my pay grade. The look he gets when something has moved outside the territory of his ability to manage. By day 5 I noticed the car. But mid-range, deliberately unremarkable, the kind of vehicle chosen specifically to not be noticed. It parks across from my building in the morning and it's gone by the time I leave for Noir at night, but it's there again when I come home. I tell myself I'm being paranoid. I'm not being paranoid. I've lived in this city long enough to know the difference between coincidence and surveillance. On the 6th day I call Ha-Jun directly. He answers on the first ring. Of course he does. The car outside my building, I say. No greeting. Call it off. Silence. Then, you're safe. That's not what I asked. I know what you asked, he says evenly. And I'm telling you you're safe. That's the relevant information. My hand tightens on the phone. You're having me watched. I'm having you protected. Without asking me. Without telling me. You just decided? Yes, he says simply. I decided. Because there are people who know your name now, Jae-min, and not because of anything you did. Because of me. Because of what I am and what that costs the people near me. The words land somewhere they weren't supposed to. I press through it. Take the car away, I say. Or I stop coming back entirely. A long pause. The kind that has weight in it. Come here tonight, he says. Talk to me in person. I'm not negotiating my own freedom in person with you, in your space, on your... Jae-min. Quiet. Direct. Please. That word from that man stops me completely. I have never heard him use it before. Not once. In all the weeks of summons and directives and flat, unarguable certainties, Song Ha-Jun has never said please to anyone in my presence. My throat goes dry. 2 hours, I say. And then I leave. He's waiting when I arrive. No drink this time, no performance of ease. He's standing in the middle of the room like a man who has been doing something unfamiliar, waiting, genuinely, without certainty about the outcome. He looks at me and something moves across his face that I feel in my stomach. Sit down, he says. I'll stand. His jaw tightens slightly. He lets it go. The conversation you heard. The morning you left. I wasn't eavesdropping. I know. I'm not accusing you. He moves to the window, puts his back to the city, faces me fully. There's a man. Park Dong-hyun. He runs competing interests in the southern districts and he's been watching my movements for the past 2 months looking for leverage. My stomach drops. And he found me. He found out you exist, Ha-Jun says. Which is my fault. I wasn't careful enough, early enough. I'm used to... He stops. I'm used to the people in my private life being protected by the existing structure. You're not inside that structure. Because I'm not your kleptomega, I say. Flat. Because you're not. He agrees. Which means you don't have the protections that come with that. Which means the car outside your building stays. I look at him. You could have told me this. I know. Instead of just putting surveillance on me like I'm an asset you're securing. I know, he says again, and something in his voice cracks slightly at the edge. Just slightly. Just enough that I catch it. I handled it the way I handle everything. I moved first and explained later. He exhales. That's the only way I know how to operate. The room is very quiet. Is he dangerous? I ask. This Park Dong-hyun. Ha-Jun looks at me steadily. Not to you. I won't allow that. That's not an answer. It's the only one I have right now. I stand there in the middle of his penthouse and feel the full weight of what I've walked into, not the arrangement, not the transactional thing I convinced myself this was. Something real and complicated and lined with edges I can't fully see yet. The car stays, I say finally. But I want to know everything. Not managed information. Everything. Ha-Jun goes very still. Everything, I repeat. He looks at me for a long moment. Then, you won't like some of it. I already don't like some of it, I say. Tell me anyway. He nods slowly. Sits down. And for the first time since I've known him, Song Ha-Jun starts talking like a man with nothing left to perform. What he tells me keeps me there well past 2 hours. And by the time he finishes, I understand that the danger was never really Park Dong-hyun. It was always this, sitting across from this man, listening to the truth of his life, and feeling myself stop wanting to leave. He told me everything. Not all at once. It came out in pieces over 3 hours, the way confession does when someone isn't used to it. The Hazung Group's real architecture. The distribution networks. The names of men who answer to him and the names of men he answers to, which is a shorter list. The things he's ordered that can't be walked back. The way power in his world works, not through law, not through legitimacy, but through the credible promise of consequence. He told me about Park Dong-hyun. The history between them, the territory dispute that has been building for 2 years, the way Dong-hyun operates. Not direct confrontation but pressure on soft points. People adjacent to Ha-Jun. People who can't protect themselves. People like me. I listened to all of it without flinching, which I think surprised him. But I grew up poor in Incheon and I've spent 3 years in rooms with men who do terrible things for money. I'm not naive about the world. I just usually have the sense to stay outside its worst edges. I walked through one of those edges without noticing, somewhere between the first Friday and now. When he finished talking, the room was very quiet and the city outside was doing its indifferent glittering thing, and I sat with everything he'd told me and made a decision. No more running. No more pretending this is something I can manage from a careful distance. If I'm already in it, and I am, my name in a dangerous man's mouth proves that, then I'm going to be in it on my own terms or not at all. I have conditions, I tell him the following evening. I came back deliberately in the daylight, before the dynamic of night and proximity could blur my thinking. I sit across from him at his table with a clarity I've been sharpening for 24 hours, and I look him directly in the eye. He doesn't look surprised. He looks like a man who has been waiting for exactly this. Tell me, he says. I keep my apartment. Fine. I keep performing at Noir. That's not negotiable and I won't discuss it. Something tightens in his jaw. That's the one I won't agree to easily. I know. Agree to it anyway. Jae-min. It's my work, I say. It's what I do. It's how I've survived and it's mine, and you don't get to take it just because it makes you uncomfortable to share what you look at. I hold his gaze. If you can't accept that I existed before you and will continue to exist as myself, then this conversation is over. The silence that follows is taut enough to snap. I watch him work through it. The control, the possessiveness, the part of him that wants to simply remove the problem the way he removes all problems. I watch him override it. Visibly. It looks like it costs him something real. Fine, he says finally. Low and tight, but he says it. I exhale slowly. The surveillance stays for now. Because I understand the reason. But the moment Dong-hyun is handled, it's gone. No more cars, no more reports to you about my movements. Agreed. And you tell me things, I say. Not manage things. Not the version you decide I can handle. If something involves me, my safety, my name, anything, I hear it first. Not after you've already acted. First. He looks at me for a long moment. That's not how I operate. I know. Operate differently. Another silence. He leans back in his chair and studies me with that focused attention that used to make me want to look away. I don't look away anymore. I've stopped letting myself. You're not afraid of me, he says. I'm afraid of you constantly, I say honestly. That's not the same as being controlled by it. Something shifts in his face. Not softness. Ha-Jun doesn't do soft. But something opens slightly, the way a door opens when the person on the other side finally decides to stop holding it closed. Is that everything? He says. One more thing. He waits. Whatever this is, I say carefully, it's real or it's nothing. I'm not an arrangement. I'm not a favorite. I'm not a toy you've decided to keep longer than the others. My voice stays steady. I'm proud of that. If you want me in your life, actually in it, then that's what I am. A person. In your life. With the same weight as anything else that matters to you. The room is very still. Ha-Jun looks at me with an expression I have never seen on his face before. Not in all the weeks of this, not in the most unguarded moments, not when he said please on the phone and surprised us both. He looks undone in the quietest possible way. Like something he built carefully over a long time has developed a crack he didn't engineer and doesn't know how to close. I don't know how to do that, he says. Quietly. Just the truth with nothing around it. I know, I say. Neither do I. We look at each other across that table and I feel it, the full terrifying weight of two people who have spent their entire lives surviving by keeping everyone at a manageable distance, standing on the edge of something that doesn't have a safe position. He reaches across the table slowly, sets his hand over mine, doesn't grip, just warm and certain and asking something without words. My chest aches with it. I turn my hand over. It's the smallest thing. It's the most significant thing I've done in 3 years. Then his phone buzzes on the table and he glances at the screen and every trace of that openness locks down so fast it's like watching a light switch off. He stands. Stay here. What's? Stay in this room. His voice has changed completely. Flat, operational, the voice of someone shifting into a mode that has no room for anything personal. Don't open the door for anyone but me. Ha-Juin, what's happening? He's already moving. Already someone else. The door closes. I sit at that table with my heart hammering and my hands still warm where his was, and I hear, from somewhere below in the building, the sound of raised voices. Then a single sharp sound that I recognize even through walls and distance and every instinct I have that wants to call it something else. It isn't something else. I know what a gunshot sounds like. I don't move for 30 seconds. I count them. 1 to 30, sitting completely still at that table with my hands flat on the surface and my heart doing something violent in my chest. The sound I heard, that single sharp crack from somewhere below, sits in my ears like it's still happening. I'm not naive enough to pretend I misheard it. I get up. I don't open the door. I'm not stupid, but I press close to it and listen, and the building has gone very quiet in the specific way that things go quiet after something irreversible. No more voices. No movement. Just the ambient hum of a city that doesn't know or care what just happened 40 floors up. My hands are shaking. I press them together and breathe. 15 minutes pass. They feel like an hour. Then the door opens and Ha-Juin walks in. He's unhurt. I scan him in 2 seconds, face, hands, the front of his shirt, and find nothing. The relief that moves through me is so physical it almost takes my knees out, and I hate that. I hate how much my body reacted before my brain had any say in it. He looks at me. His expression is locked down and operational and completely unreadable. What happened? I say. It's handled. That's not. Dong-hyun sent someone, he says flatly, to deliver a message. The message has been returned. He crosses the room, picks up his phone, makes a call in 4 terse sentences I don't fully follow, and hangs up. Then he stands in the middle of the room and looks at me, and for the first time I see it, the thing underneath the control, right at the surface, barely contained. He was afraid. Not for himself. I know that without him saying it. He was afraid for me. You should have told me to go home, I say. Before this happened. I know. You knew he was going to move tonight. I suspected. His jaw is tight. I wanted you here. That was selfish, and I knew it was selfish, and I made the wrong call. I stare at him. Song Ha-Juin just admitted he was wrong. To me. Directly. Without being pushed. I don't know what to do with this man. He has me move that night. Not to his penthouse. I won't agree to that, and he doesn't push it. But the secured building 3 blocks from mine, same neighborhood, a unit on a high floor with 2 of his people in the lobby. Temporary uses. Until Dong-hyun is fully resolved. I agree because I'm not an idiot and because my apartment building has a broken lock on the ground floor entrance that has been asking the landlord to fix for 6 months. I don't agree because Ha-Juin told me to. I tell him that distinction matters. I know it does, he says. He's standing in the doorway of the new unit watching me look around the space, and his eyes haven't left me since we arrived. Jae-min. I turn. I'm going to finish this, he says. Dong-hyun. The problem. I'm going to end it cleanly and it won't touch you. I need you to trust that. I don't trust easily, I say. I know. I've spent 3 years making sure I don't have to trust anyone. I know that too. I look at him across the room, this dangerous, controlling, obsessive man who has upended every careful system I built, And I feel the full complicated weight of what has happened to me over these months. It isn't a fairy tale. It isn't clean. He has done things I can't defend and will probably do more things I can't defend, and the world he lives in has edges that have already cut close enough to draw blood. And I am standing in a safe house that exists because he refused to leave me exposed. Don't lie to me, I say. Whatever happens with Dong Hyun, don't manage it into something easier. Tell me what I need to know. Yes. And when this is over, I say carefully, we have an actual conversation about what this is. Not tonight. When it's over. He crosses the room. Stops close enough that his scent reaches me, warm and dominant and frustratingly familiar now, the smell I've apparently memorized without deciding to. He lifts his hand and touches my face, just his thumb against my jaw, brief and deliberate, and looks at me with that open, undone expression that still sits wrong on his face in the best possible way. When it's over, he says quietly, everything you want. He leaves. I hear his security team outside the door. I sit on the edge of the bed in this clean, anonymous room and put my face in my hands and breathe. Dong Hyun is handled in 11 days. I don't ask for details. I ask only the question that matters. Is it done? Ha-Jun says yes. I believe him because men like him don't leave things halfway. It's the one quality of his that I find uncomplicated. The car outside my building disappears. I move back to my own apartment. I go back to Noir and perform my sets, and the stage feels exactly as it always has. Mine, completely, the one place in my life that has always belonged to me alone. Ha-Jun comes on a Friday. Sits at the upper tier. Watches the full set. Afterward I find him waiting outside, not in the corridor, outside, on the street, in the cold, like a man who has decided to do something on someone else's territory for once. He's in a dark coat and his breath fogs slightly in the November air, and he looks, almost, like a regular person. Almost. You came, I say. You said when it's over, he says. It's over. I look at him for a moment. The city moves around us indifferently. A taxi honks somewhere. Someone laughs across the street. Buy me dinner, I say. Somewhere no one watches you walk in. Does that place exist? Find one. The corner of his mouth moves. Not quite a smile. Ha-Jun doesn't really smile, but something close. Something real. He finds a place. A small Galbi restaurant in a side street in Mapo, worn wooden tables and harsh lighting and owners who are too busy to care who walks in. We sit across from each other and order too much food, and the conversation is halting at first. Two people who have been many things to each other figuring out how to be this new thing. It doesn't come easily. We argue twice before the food arrives. He tries to order for me and I tell him not to. He does it anyway. I eat it because it's exactly what I would have chosen. We stay for 3 hours. Walking out afterward, his hand finds mine in the cold. Not a grip. Not possession. Just the same way it was at that table in the penthouse, warm and certain and asking without words. I let it stay. The city has opinions about us. It always will. The underworld has already written the story. The Don's dancer, the Omega he cleared his house for, the toy that lasted. People will say what people say. I have stopped caring what the city calls me. I know what I am. I am Bae Jae-min. I grew up in Incheon and I came to Seoul with nothing, and I built a life with my own hands, and I am still standing in it, fully myself, belonging to no one. I am also, apparently, in whatever this is with Song Ha-Jun. Both things are true. Both things can be true. His hand is warm in mine and the night is cold, and somewhere behind us Noir glitters on without me, and somewhere ahead of us is a future I can't fully see yet. For the first time in 3 years, I don't need to see it to keep walking.